Self-checkout might be going away, but why? Let's find out. So, I have an article here that says 10 big name retail chains ditching self-checkout in 2025. Now, this is a little bit of an older article. June 17th, specifically by Miss Sylvia Cooper. Don't really care about her, but sure. I notice. So, first off, let's take a step back. Why I picked this article? I know a lot of people don't like self-checkouts. I know that. There have been states that have actively talked about how they're going to ban any store from having more than 2 self-checkouts active at a time. Oregon comes to mind. There's a couple of other states out there. Anyways, the whole point was old people, they can't handle it, blah, 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 whatever. That's neither here nor there. For those who may not know or may have forgotten, I did work with a company that did self-checkouts. So I don't want to talk about I don't have the experience in the behind the scenes stuff about it, but I see it in a different light than most people. Okay, so I'm not uniquely qualified to talk about a subject like this, but I understand enough through my own observations with the knowledge that I've acquired through a career in dealing with technology, specifically automation like self-checkouts. So that being stated, let's just go through this list real fast. We don't really have to talk about specifically why. Walmart and Costco, Wegmans, let's see here, Kroger, BJ's Wholesale, Albertsons, Target, Trader Joe's, Publix, Hy-Vee, and so for Albertsons, it's really Albertsons Safeway is the company. It's not just Albertsons. And then I was told that Walmart also includes Sam's Club. So Sam's Club is talking about getting rid of their self-checkouts as well. Why this is important? Well, a couple of years ago, when I was working, we were told that several stores were actually going to go to some interesting concepts. One of which was there was not going to be any manned checkouts. It was just going to be pure self-checkout. Another program that some of the companies were working on, and when I say some of the companies, I'm not talking about retailers. I'm talking about the technology sellers, which I call the shovel salesmen, because they're selling shovels in a gold rush. They were selling these concepts where you can take a standalone self-checkout into what's called a hybrid. So you have the checker there, but you're not giving money to the checker, you're giving money to the machine. So they sit there and they scan the device or scan the items and all that stuff just to kind of keep the line moving, and then you feed the machine money. And the whole point of, well, there's multiple points to self-checkout. One of which is the money aspect. Okay. These companies don't want their employees touching money. Okay. Because they can buy the products in bulk for pennies on the dollar. Okay. But the money is not something that they can really recuperate. So if an employee steals money, it's a big deal. Okay. The industry that I'm working in now is trying to take the human factor out of the money handling behind the scenes. And there's a couple of companies that are trying to get into that space. But that's basically that was one of the main goals of self checkout, was to take the human aspect out of the money, because you can't really trick a computer. Okay, an example of this is, let's take a self checkout and let's take a manned checkout machine, right? Or a manned checkout, I should say. So you give the person, $100 bill, and let's just say it's a fake $100 bill. That person could be tricked into taking a fake bill. Okay, the computer can't, because in every cash machine on the self checkout, there's a little device that takes a note and it reads it. It does like a magnetic test, an image test. It checks for the little identification strip. It does a lot of different tests. Like, if I recall correctly, it could be up to 7 different tests in one little device. And a human can't do that. Like, they can kind of look at it and be like, yeah, that looks real to me, whatever. But you can't trick the machine. The machine is really designed well to prevent that. So that was one of the main reasons why they wanted to do away with people. Obviously, the other aspect is the manpower aspect. A machine may cost $80,000, whereas a human can cost a lot more, and then of course they get sick. They cause issues with the store. Like, the machine sits there and does the job, and that's all it does. It never stops until it breaks, and then that we'll take that and put that off to the side. But it does its job, and it does its job well. Okay, it doesn't complain, doesn't cry. You don't have to send it to breaks. It doesn't do any of that. Okay. But I do have a very big conspiracy on this, which is, I'm going to get rid of that. Working in my industry, I know that when it comes to the sales aspect of it, the salesmen do whatever they can to get their foot in the door, because once their foot is in the door, they have that company by the gonads. And what I mean by that is, let's say you got a store called, Mall of Walls, okay? Mall of Walls. And the salesman from World Cash Register comes in and says, hey, we have this self-checkout, we'll give you a discount on these machines, even though they're like, $80,000 per unit. We'll discount them to $50,000. Okay, we want to be in your stores, and hopefully we can make this deal happen. Okay, when Mall of Walls says, okay, $50,000 per unit, fine. What Mall of Walls ends up getting stuck with is the service contract. These self-checkout technology companies, they don't make money on the technology itself. They make money off of the service contract. Okay? And what that is you got a guy like me who fixes them. They come in and they charge an obscene amount of money to come in and fix whatever, my company values me at $300 an hour. That's how much just me showing up is. That doesn't include other aspects, like if I need parts, you get billed for the parts. Like, you don't, if it's part of like wear and tear or something that was unavoidable, you won't get billed for that. But let's say a customer puts in a wet note, which that's, believe it or not, that's common and it's gross. They put in a wet note. I bill for that. And it rounds up to the nearest hour. And if the part's broken, I mean, some of those parts are $1,000, or a customer spills their soda into the machine. I bill for all of that. And there have been instances where the estimate is so big that they end up buying a new machine rather than dealing with the headache of it not being fixed the first go around. Because, once I add new parts, I could be introducing problems. So I think where a lot of these companies, they're getting hosed is they weren't expecting the service part of things to be bad. Because, like, take a human, right? Human, you kind of know what their cost is right out of the gate, okay? They're going to cost so much per hour, and you're going to have them work for 20 hours a week or whatever. You know that's what it's going to be, right? But for things like self-checkouts or something like that, you think you know until you get the sticker value shock. And then you're like, oh, okay. So there's that. And then, of course, making your customers do that job. I mean, obviously, they're going to not scan things properly. There may be an innocent mistake where they miss one thing, but there have been instances where I watch as people will scan an item, and then as they're scanning one item, they're putting another item into the bag. So that's one of the biggest reasons, obviously, is the loss that these stores are incurring. A good checkout person won't miss that stuff because they're trained to. One of the biggest acronyms in retail is Bob and Lisa, right? What is it? God, I can't remember. Look in and look inside and something like that. It's those two acronyms, but basically they're saying check everything in the cart. Check, like, if a person puts like a trash can, check inside the trash can or inside the Tupperware or whatever. Always check everywhere, right? That's why I always felt that, like, self-checkout really should only be like maybe 15 items max. It should be more convenience, and you should only have, like, 2 lanes worth of convenience versus a whole store's worth. Because the thing about self-checkouts is so much can go wrong. The card reader can fail. The cash recycler can fail. The coin recycler can fail. A lot of things on that unit can fail. Whereas man self-checkout, you're kind of taking all that stuff out of the equation. And I know COVID kind of shifted us away from, human interaction. But obviously that's changing because the theft is just getting so out of hand. But here's the thing is, I don't think that a lot of the theft is happening at self-checkout. I really doubt it. I think where the majority of theft is coming from is when you see those guys walk out with those giant strollers full of stuff. They're walking out of the store. The whole thing is there's always going to be theft in retail. That's just a give me. And it's a constant fight to try and fight theft. I look, okay. In the future, I think what's going to happen is, the what do they call it? The curbside pickup. I think that's the future. I really do. The reason why I think it's the future is rather than have you come inside the store, it's just a warehouse. Okay. I mean, a lot of these stores look like warehouses inside anyways. They're not decorated anymore. They're bare bones. Like there's nothing going on in there. So you can cut out the middleman by just stocking it like a warehouse, and you submit your order. You come to the curbside, and they show up and they load your cart or they load your car. That's literally it. That's the future. You're not going to be able to walk into a store because if you can't walk into the store, then there's no worry for theft except for theft from employees, and you can cut down on manpower, you can cut down on asset protection, you can cut down on a lot of things just by doing that. The only thing that you're gonna lose out on, And this is where the store makes a lot of money, is impulse purchases. And I guarantee you that there's a lot of places right now they're making those calculations in their accounting departments. And I would be willing to bet money, that's how certain I am, that in 10 years, the only option available is curbside pickup. You know, you go to the store, you park, and then they come out with your groceries, they load it, and you leave. You know, it's going to cut down a lot of things like, you know, like I said, the impulse buying, all that stuff. The other place where a lot of grocery stores make money is, believe it or not, it's their store brands. They make a lot more money on that because they're not paying as much versus, like, you know, the big names like Frito-Lays and all that stuff. Because those companies, they spend so much money on advertisement. You're paying the advertisement. It's literally the same product, but it's packaged differently. And like I said, the bigger companies will tack on the advertising costs onto you. You know, because it's not like they're coming from like the same like the company owns the factories and all that stuff. They're just local factories producing that kind of stuff. The whole supply chain is completely, when you study it, it's very interesting to see how many companies are involved from just to produce like a bag of chips, you know. And then that's where economies of scale come into play. You know, once you get the formula down, you know, the packaging down, all that stuff, you can produce so much of it that the costs just plummet. And that's why you get like a $2 bag of chips rather than like, you know, $60 bag of chips, you know, because they're artisanal or whatever. I'm being grossly exaggerating, but it's damn near close to that. So anyways, again, the theft is a big issue, but it's not going to stop with self-checkout. It's just going to stop the opportunists, which I'm guessing they feel that there's a lot of opportunist theft in stores, which is shocking to me, but it would make sense. I mean, there have been times where I've accidentally not scanned something and didn't catch it, you know, and then I realize what happened, and then I go around and say, hey, I screwed up, you know, because I'm an honest guy. I can't stand theft because I see it day in and day out. Like I said, there have been instances where I'm standing in a grocery store and I see the guy with the giant cart walk right out the front door, and people are chasing him. They can't touch him or anything. He knows that. And that was one of the main reasons why I moved out of California, because I felt like a huge sucker for that. And then to see everything locked up, you know, like you need the employee to come with their keys to get you something, and you're there 30 minutes just for that to happen. And I've gotten to a point where if it's locked up, I won't even get it. You know, that's the nice thing about living in Texas, is nothing is locked up. I have yet to see anything locked up in a store. Not to say that doesn't happen. It's just I haven't seen it. You know, but in like California, even in like small communities, things were locked up behind glass cages, and it drove me nuts. You know, having to stand there and all that stuff. And like I said, I'll just say screw it and just order it from Amazon, and I'll get it in 2 days. You know, so I think that I'm hoping that this goes through, because that'll mean more jobs locally. Because the problem with self-checkouts is, even though it produces good jobs, not every single job is here in the U.S., right? Like, I'll just make up an example just to kind of explain what happens, but it's possible that's a little overblown. So you got a store, they get self-checkouts. They're going to get rid of 10 employees. Well, that's 10 employees, even though, you know, it's a retail job, it's not a good job. 10 employees that won't get a good job, right? Now, multiply that by thousands of stores. That's tens of thousands of employees gone. Meanwhile, I, the quote-unquote technician, will service, you know, 50 stores. So if 50 stores got rid of 10 employees and they replaced it with just me, I've basically killed, in a way, 5,000 jobs or something like that. And then, of course, there's the support staff that support me out in the field. There's the people who manufacture the parts and people who manufacture the actual product, which those are two different companies, right? But the manufacturing doesn't happen here in the U.S. Like, there's been manufacturing in places like Hungary, India, Mexico, China, Japan, Indonesia. When we're helping their economies out. But we don't have those manufacturing plants here in the U.S. The only people that are here in the U.S. is the technician, because obviously he has to be local, and maybe the support staff. I've worked in companies where the support staff is actually in India, and those are the quote-unquote experts, which they're only experts by attrition. They're not really experts. Like, they, depending on the company, they could have like a little lab where they have like the product there, and they can kind of go in there and look at things with you and all that stuff. But a lot of times they don't. So they're looking at manuals. And the only thing that separates me from them is they can interpret the manual a little better. And they've probably run across like the same issue 5-6 times before I ever did. So that's like the only difference between me and the quote unquote experts. Like I said, automation is one of those industries that is just, the more you understand it, the more you realize it's a scam. Like, it's a huge scam. Honestly, if it were up to me, like, I like my job, I like what I do, but get rid of self-checkouts, honestly. Like, let's get people working again here in this country. But maybe I'm wrong on that. I don't know. Anyways, this article was, or this whole topic, I should say, was more kind of like a vanity project rather than something that's important. Honestly, the world's going to keep spinning if there's self-checkout or not. So, I don't want to be negative or anything about that, but I just thought that it was more of an interesting article. And maybe, you go into the store one day and it's like the 90s again. There's no self-checkouts. It's all registers, and there's people all lined up at those registers. Who knows? I don't know. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And I hope you enjoyed this topic, talking about automation and just the intricacies of automation in general. Have a good day.